Welcome to How Preschool Teachers Do It.
This is Alison Kentos. I am an early childhood educator.
And this is Cindy Tarabush. I am an early childhood consultant.
This podcast is for parents and early childhood professionals.
Let our experience and research-based knowledge become your guide.
Welcome back, preschool peeps.
Hi, peeps.
This might be a slightly shorter episode than last week, but if you haven't listened to last week's, please do, because I think there are things you will come across that you didn't know, maybe. Yeah. And maybe you know it all, but that's okay. It reinforces your knowledge. Yeah. Today, however, we're total pivot from talking about us as professionals to talking about what we do with families. So I know of early childhood programs that either since the pandemic are still restricting families from coming into their programs, even though we've brought everything else back. Mm-hmm. People are not bringing the families back. But I also know something else, like they're putting these restrictions on families, like unless you are part of our parent-teacher organization, you can't volunteer in our rooms. Mm-hmm. Unless you pay dues to our parent organization, you cannot XYZ. And I'm here to tell you, we can't do that. If your program is doing that, you can't do that. And we know that from our ethical code, which is given to us by NACCE. If you want to know what NACCE is, go back to our last episode. Yeah. We explain it. NACCE provides us with an ethical code. That ethical code, and some of you have heard me say this before, it has 4 sections. The first section is our obligations to children. Second section, our obligations to families. And in the obligations to families, it says that we are not permitted to restrict families from our early education environments, that they have every right to come in. Your open door policy has to come back. And you can't say to people, if you don't belong to this, you can't do that. They have every right to be in our programs at our events. Yeah. And it's the event thing that bothers me the most.
The event thing that bothers me the most.
How do you tell a family, like, we're having a multicultural event, but you can't participate?
Can't come because you don't belong to the PTA or you didn't pay dues or whatever it may be. How wrong is that? Okay. But also, that child has no idea that the reason their mother or father or family can't come is because they can't afford the dues. They just think their mom's not showing up.
I think people don't think about and the dues aren't necessarily very expensive, but there are people who are struggling to put food on their tables, especially in this day and age. And I think we need to recognize that. I'm trying to remember, I was a card-carrying PTA member in the elementary schools. I probably joined after that, but didn't do much. Yeah. Because my children would have been mortified in middle school and high school. But in elementary school, I was class mom. And I think if I were not a PTA member in the elementary school, I could not have been class mom.
That is 100% correct in certain schools. Yes.
So how do you feel about...
Now, not every school I worked at was like that, but certain ones were. And I don't agree with that.
So you think the PTA should have, or any parent organization that you might put together in your program or school, which, by the way, is a very worthy thing to do. It's wonderful to have an organization of parents. You would be amazed how they will fundraise for you, how they will put together events for you. They take some of the burden off.
Right. Oh, yeah. No, they're amazing.
And you can absolutely amazing them with parameters. I set up a parent organization in a program that I used to direct because when I came in, there had been a lot of upheaval about, there was a long-term director who they loved. Then there was somebody who didn't work out, who was there for 2 months. So there was upheaval. And then they brought me in. Yeah. So I said, these people need to feel empowered, which I think is true of all people. We're going to set up a parent organization, but I had parameters. I had parameters like anything you're planning, I have to know about because I know the rules and regulations of the state of New Jersey. I need to be at your meetings. This is like a parent-teacher organization, a PTO or a PTA. I need to be at your meetings. Because if you're talking about something that can't be done, I can save you a lot of time and effort. Right. And they did great things. I don't think I ever told them that they couldn't do something. They had great ideas and great efforts and raised funds and did all sorts of things. They put on plays for the children. They were great.
they bring in like great things at my
Yeah.
school, like assemblies. They brought in a
Yeah.
petting zoo, like awesome things.
So I do believe in PTA, PTO, parent organization, whatever you call it. I believe in it. And that said, you have an interesting perspective on, but you can't be class mother.
Right.
Or class parent. I shouldn't say mother.
Right. Because I just find it wrong. Like if somebody wants to volunteer to help their child's class and they're willing to take that on and do that work, then let them. But instead you're saying, sorry, no, your work is not good enough. You are not worthy enough because you don't belong to the PTA and you didn't pay dues. And I think that's wrong. Like if you want to help, you should be welcoming them into the class and you should be saying, yes, we want your help.
Well, how do you feel about this then? And it just sort of popped into my head. I'm
Yeah.
not saying I like it or not.
Right.
I wanted to get your take on it.
Yeah.
What if a school or program were to say, first choice for a class parent
Okay.
goes to people who are part of the PT parent organization? If either, wait, it's forming in my
Okay.
head.
Yeah.
Either if we don't get volunteers or we create two positions for the families,
Okay.
one is a PTA member, one is not.
Okay. That would be helpful. I say that because in one of my classes, I didn't have a class mom. And the person who wanted to volunteer was not in the PTA. They told her no. And then I had no one. And the person that they eventually basically roped into doing it, who didn't want to do it, did none of the work that we needed to do. So then it was like, but you had somebody who wanted to do it and you told them no. And then you roped this woman and I don't know how they got her to do it. She's like, fine, I'll do it. If you can't get anyone else, I'll do it. She was in the PTA. They allowed her to do it. She did nothing all year.
You know what this reminds me of? In our last episode, we talked about the least restrictive environment for children.
I said it in that episode that it should be for all professions. And I agree.
Should we also have the least restrictive environment for families?
Yes. Yes, we should. Thank you.
And so many programs resort to the most restrictive environment for families.
Yes.
Don't you think, though, that that comes out of fear? What are the families going to do, say, like, not like?
Why are you hiding? Why do you feel you have to hide?
It's a decent question.
Right? Because why, if you're allowing the members of like the PTA in, their parents, just like the people who aren't members of the PTA, what's the difference?
Well, there are times when I'm going to say that members of these organizations are also not allowed in our schools.
They should not be, yes.
I mean, I'm saying if a family member, if anyone raising the children at home
yes,
says to us, you're having this thing, I would love to come. Our ethical code says you can't say no.
right. But I've also, I'm just saying, worked at a school where it wasn't a class mom thing. They just wanted to come and volunteer for the party.
Yeah.
And they were told no because they were not a member of the PTA.
That's yes.
And they're
yes.
not the class mom. They're just like, hey, I just want to come help the kids get into their costumes.
So they're
whatever.
they're basically not allowed in the
They are
environment.
not allowed in.
No, they can't do that. You can, folks,
Yeah.
you cannot ethically do that.
Yeah. It's wrong on so many levels, but it's just wrong. Why would you deny a family member from coming to any event?
Do you know there have been research and studies that show that children thrive when they see their families involved in their early childhood program in any way, whether it's physically there or providing things for it, or in any way, when they see cooperation between the people in their most important worlds, they are more apt to thrive.
Yes.
So then when we put up a blockade and we say no. Now I may have told this story in the past, but bear with me, folks, because it's reminding me of it.
Yeah.
There are situations in which families, may I say, don't always realize that their behavior is distracting the children.
Correct.
I one time I got yelled at by a clown when I was directing a program. Laugh it up, but it's no joke to be laughed at by a clown.
To be yelled at by a clown. Okay.
So, I brought in this woman who used to do or maybe still does. I don't
Okay.
know, because I don't run a program anymore. She did something called the Clown Phobia Show, where she would come in dressed just like you and me in everyday clothes.
Yeah.
And she would be very funny and very entertaining with the children. And as she was entertaining the children and making them laugh, she would slowly change into clown clothes and clown makeup. So they would realize clowns are just people too, and they wouldn't be
Okay.
so afraid.
Yeah.
And then she would make the children up as clowns, and it really did bust that phobia.
Okay.
So one time, I had more than once, actually, I had families who were sure their children were never going to make it because they were afraid of clowns. And I used to say to families, no, we haven't lost anybody yet. She's fantastic.
Yeah.
Here's what she does.
Yeah.
They're going to get over this clown phobia. And one year I had a parent who was just very, very protective, which you have every right to be if you would like.
Yeah.
And she was like, my child is never going to survive this. And I said, which maybe wasn't so wise, I said, why don't you come sit in the back, watch what's going to happen? It's because I couldn't get this parent off my back about it. So I defaulted to come in and see it. And then, of course, this parent told other parents. So now everybody's coming, right? So now I have a crowd.
Parent already has a fear of clowns.
No, the child did.
Oh, not that, but I'm thinking maybe the child learned it from the parent.
The child, she was worried about the child's fear of clowns. So I set up chairs. So the children are going to be sitting on the floor to watch this show and participate in it. And I set up chairs for the adults in the back. For some reason, I'm getting there. For some reason, adults don't think we can hear them when they whisper. I don't know why.
Yeah.
Like, folks, we can hear you.
We can hear you.
So they're back there just chit-chatting, not even watching the show, just chit-chatting with each other, which the children keep turning around now and looking at their families, and they're totally distracted from the show. And the clown walks up to me and says, these families have to go. She said, these children are so distracted by them. If they don't know how to behave, you have to get them out of here. And I was like, oh my God, a clown is yelling at me. So I went to the families and I said, with a smile on my face, folks, you're distracting the children and this event cannot go on. I'm going to ask you to please step into the hallway.
Yeah.
Like I was horrified on so many levels, of, oh my gosh.
Oh my gosh.
Seeing something like that, I learned, it can only be the children.
Right.
But that's an event that doesn't take place all the time. Right. That's not part of the, it's not part of the routine. It was not part of the routine of my program. It was a once a year thing. You know, there were some times when we went on field trips. So this was another thing. So there were times when we went on field trips where we felt like the children behaved differently when their families are there, and we need them to pay attention. We actually we decided we can't pick and choose which field trips families are going on. So we basically said, we will take the children on the field trip because your children need to learn to go without you. And there was a social emotional reason for that. We would need the children to be able to function in this sort of a thing before they go to kindergarten and first grade. Right. So, but to say, if you don't pay dues or you don't belong to this organization, that, oh my God, I want you to think about, folks, times when finances may have restricted you from doing something and how that feels, no matter what it is.
Right.
How does it feel when someone tells you, no, financially, you have not whatever, and you can't do this?
Right. Like, I just feel so badly for them and the child that they want to, but then they already feel bad that they can't afford to join probably. And then you made them feel double bad because now they can't volunteer for anything. And then the child doesn't get their parent there.
It's really a sad situation, you know? So there's got to be a way where people who belong to the parent or family organization, we really should call it family.
I know.
More than parents raise children. If there's got to be an incentive to belong and to pay those dues if they're paying dues.
Yeah.
There has to be something they get.
Okay.
because our society,
it-
capitalism, is based on currency.
Correct. But then I feel like in this situation, this is the only, like in this situation, you're forcing people to join things that maybe they don't want to join. And that's not the way to get your members. I don't think that's a good way.
I mean, it worked for me.
It worked for you. Yes.
I wanted to be the class parent. So here, have my money. I'm going to be in the.
No, but I just don't, I don't know.
And then I had a friend who was an officer and she looped me in, but that's a whole other sad story about who I am, that I get looped into these positions all the time on
Yeah.
boards.
She does though. She still does.
It's true. I do serve on a board.
Yeah.
But it's a very worthy board. It's the diaper bank board.
It is a worthy board.
So what sort of incentive
I don't know.
can we provide people then to belong to a family organization related to our programs in schools?
I don't know.
I don't know either.
Because
Maybe our listeners
But I
know.
also know, like, other public schools that I have worked at did not have that rule. So they must have been getting something.
I don't know. I honestly don't know. Maybe it's just the joy of being involved. She laughs. Maybe it's just, I want to be involved. I want to, I want to support what's happening here, and I can for people who can.
Yeah, or
I want to be involved in the fundraisers and
yeah, and I want to
other
be
things.
informed of what's going on at school, and I want to have a say in that, like a parent voice in that. That's important. But like,
I think it's more the voice than the informed, because everybody
Maybe.
should be informed.
yeah,
So maybe it's, I want to have a voice, which if we go
Right.
back to what I was telling you about where I directed a
Yeah.
school, they were feeling very disempowered.
Yeah.
And they needed a voice. And their voice was not, you're going to make the rules for my school. It was, here, we're going to meet. I will be there.
yeah.
You can air your grievances like it's Festivus if you'd like.
Festivus for the rest of us.
Yeah.
Yes.
So you can air your grievances and by the way, if those of you who are thinking, I can't do that, all I'll get is grievances, it's not true.
That is not true.
The people who were the first group in my parent organization had every single right to air grievances.
Yeah.
There were things that happened there, particularly before my arrival, that they didn't like. And then when I arrived and changed things, well, nobody really likes change. So they had so much that they could have aired, but they didn't. They focused instead on the task at hand,
Yeah.
which was supporting that place so that it could be a good place for their
Mhm.
children.
Yeah.
So I think sometimes we doubt the intentions of people, and we need to go in a little more innocent,
That's true.
right? A little more assuming the best of other human beings. And like I said, you can have parameters.
Yeah.
But to say, you're right, to say to people, you can't
You just
be
can't.
involved in this activity, this event, this class, because you didn't ante up.
Right.
Yeah, I don't
It's
get
just
that.
wrong.
Folks, if you're thinking, but we do that because that's the incentive, you need to come up with another incentive.
Yep.
You seriously do.
Yeah.
If anyone who's listening has this in their programs with other incentives, please contact us and we
Yeah.
can share
Yeah.
that information. The way you contact us is through our contact form on howpreschoolteachersdoit.com. And while you're on the website, go check out how to get our episodes on the Spaces by Wix app, which
Yeah.
people appreciate sometimes, that direct access.
Yes.
Okay, folks, we promised you a shorter episode. This is a shorter episode, and we will catch you next time.
Bye, peeps.